And welcome back to Capitol Tonight. So we have mentioned in the past that there were a lot of new faces at the Capitol this year, including roughly a dozen new members of the state Senate. It was, however, a bit of an unusual introduction to the budget battle for these freshmen because lawmakers actually managed to pass an on-time spending plan, which is something that has not occurred in Albany for 5 years. My next guest is one of the Capitol newbies. He's here to share his perspective on the budget process. Gustavo Rivera is a Democrat who represents parts of the Bronx. Senator, thanks very much for joining me.
It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm not so sure you should get used to this on-time thing. But, you know.
Well, I think we can, if we can learn from this process. I mean, there were things that could have been done a little differently, but overall I think it is a positive thing that we passed it on time. It's just one of the many things that the legislature has to do to demonstrate that we are getting better.
Yeah, but, okay, I buy that, and I think that people are probably happy about it. But then there's a flip side to that, which is that the legislature got rolled by the governor because he threatened to use extenders, and now looks like little more than a rubber stamp.
I don't agree. I think, you know, there were very tough choices that we had to make this year. And certainly, it's no secret that there's some disagreements that I have with the governor about some of the decisions that he made in this budget. But there are a lot of things that I agree with the governor on. And we sat down in conference committees, which is something that had not happened in a while. And we came to an agreement on a lot of things that are positive for the state and positive for my district. I don't think it's a perfect budget. It's a tough budget and a tough budget year, but I do believe that it is overall that it is a positive thing for the state.
I spoke to some of your colleagues, say Senator Krueger, for example, Liz Krueger, that is.
Who, as a parenthesis, I am extremely glad that she is the ranker on the Finance Committee. I've learned a lot working with her, and I'm looking for her as a member of the Finance Committee. I look forward to working with her in the coming years on future budgets.
And she came in right at the end because of Carl Krueger's legal troubles. But she said to me, one of the big problems was, of course, that rent control was not in the budget, and that there were some people who would have difficulty voting yes on it. And I asked her if, in fact, there was a possibility that the Democrats would refuse to provide a quorum for the Republicans. Was that ever seriously considered?
I think all of us, I have 72,000 units of rent-stabilized apartments in my district, which makes it the second largest number of units in any district in the state. It is something that I'm incredibly concerned with, as are a lot of Democrats from downstate and other big cities. We always knew that this is something that is important, that we have to get done this year before June 15th. Some of us are disappointed that it was not done in the budget, but I believe that the governor has made some commitments that this is going to happen. And he knows he has to do it because it needs to be done by June 15th.
What leverage do you have then that's left? If you don't do it in the budget, then what can you hold out on, in other words, to make it happen? I know what you're going to say is, well, how should we shouldn't hold out on anything. We're going to do every policy decision is based on merit and it has nothing to do with horse trading. But I would tell you that I don't believe you, so don't say that. Okay?
You would not believe me.
I would not believe you. I'm so sorry. I would not.
Well, no apologies necessary, Liz.
No good.
I think this is going to be a difficult process going forward. There's definitely a lot of people there's a lot of people that want different policies. For example, we've talked about like a tax cap, right? A property tax cap.
Sure.
There's a possibility that something like that could be discussed in tandem with the rent regulation. But the most important part here is that 2.5 million units across the state, which means millions of New Yorkers are going to be impacted with probably what would be the biggest tax in their lives if we do not reform rent regulation, if we don't extend it.
Do you foresee then, I mean, we know that we are not going to be held here into the summer by the budget. I mean, now, of course, June 20th is the scheduled last day for the session. Do you foresee that this battle, June 15th is the rent regulation expiration date. Do you foresee that this battle is going to go all the way to the end, right up to the very end?
I don't know, but I hope that it does not. When we're talking about the millions of New Yorkers who would be impacted if rent regulation is not extended, but more importantly strengthened, we're dealing with millions of people that could be on the street, and they're all over the state. Mostly downstate, certainly, but all over the state, and we need to, and those are the people that we need to care about.
There were two of your colleagues, I think it's Senator Duane from Manhattan and Senator Ruben Diaz from the Bronx, if he's sharing your borough, if not your district, obviously, who voted no on every single one of those 10 budget bills. A number of your colleagues did. Did you vote no on any of those budget bills?
I did. I voted no on 2 of them, one related to the revenue, and one which is known as a Article 7 language bill. The revenue on the revenue one, as again, no secret, well, the biggest disappointment that I have with this particular budget is that it did not include an extension of the personal income tax surcharge for wealthier New Yorkers, which I believe is necessary so that we can have the revenue a revenue stream that would ease the type of cuts that we have to make. I don't believe, by the way, that it is dead. But that is one bill that I voted on. The other one was in Article 7, which is the language that would have changed regarding to education. And I have serious concerns about what we can do to education.
Wait a minute, not dead. That's interesting. When will it be resurrected from the grave? Because I consider it fairly dead. I think the governor has made it quite clear that he was going to have a budget with no new taxes. Are you saying that now that the budget has no new taxes, afterwards you might resurrect the millionaire's tax and say, well, the budget didn't have any new taxes, now we can pass this extension of the PIT?
Well, see, the difference between you and me, Liz, is that I am an optimist. And in this case...
I'm not a pessimist.
Well, I'll tell you like this. I believe, first of all, there are 20 of my colleagues in the Senate, in the Democratic side, that signed a letter to the governor asking for the extension.
Yes, I remember, sure.
And there's 2 senators from the Republican side, Bonasek and Maziarz, both of which are on record as supporting what they call a true millionaire's tax.
Yeah, and Roy McDonald is open to it,
correct,
too. That's a third.
Which would, and the true millionaire's tax would give us about $780 million in this fiscal year, and maybe, excuse me, about $3 billion next year. This is something that could still happen.
How?
December 31st is when it expires.
Okay.
So I am going to continue to have conversations about ways that we could potentially do this. I believe that the cuts that we're going to experience are going to be very serious, and that the impact that it's going to have on residents all over the state. You know, the reason why these 3 Republicans are supportive of it, and I believe a couple of other ones that are not on the record yet support it as well, is because they understand that these cuts are going to impact the majority of the people in their districts. This is not a dead issue, and I certainly will continue to speak about it. I know colleagues in the Assembly are also thinking about it. I believe that we can get to a position in which we talk about how we can actually expand this tax so that we can have more revenue to deal with the difficult decisions that we had to make in this budget this year.
Did you recall Senator Diaz's comments on the floor in which he basically shook a finger at every single one of his colleagues and said, shame on you for voting yes on this budget. Shame on you for supporting Governor Andrew Cuomo because all he wants to do is be president, and he wants to have this sort of like threading the needle situation where he's half a fiscal conservative and then half a social progressive. What was your response or your feeling about that? I mean, I know this is your first time around in Albany as a senator. You have been a staffer in the past. So, I mean, you've seen this before, but how did you feel when you saw that?
Well, I think that ultimately a vitriol of this nature is not really productive. My concern is to make sure that I can work along with my colleagues both in the other side of the aisle and potentially with the governor. Now, the governor has been on the record that he does not want new taxes, and I certainly respect that, and we've had conversations about that since I obviously disagree with him. As far as I'm concerned, this is, I need to make sure that I can work with my colleagues across the aisle, that I can work with the governor, and I can work with my colleagues in the Assembly, and the best way to do that is to be, you know, to have a tone which leads to conversation.
Do you believe the governor wants to be president?
Well, I believe the governor wants to do the best of what's for the state of New York.
But what elected official doesn't want to be president? I mean, do you want to be president? Just curious.
I want to be senator for the district in the 33rd in the Northwest Bronx. That is my job, and it'll continue to be my job.
Okay, actually, but you also do a little bit of a moonlighting situation as a singer, I understand, right? And you're going to be doing some singing at Somos, is that correct? So that's what you're here for. You're here still in Albany.
Well, I'm not here. I am still in Albany, but I'm not here to sing necessarily.
But I will be singing.
I will be. But I'm here for the Somos El Futuro conference. Now, Somos El Futuro means we are the future. It is a legislative conference that happens every year. This is the 24th year. And it is also, I believe, the 12th year of a program that I work with very closely, which is called the Model State Senate. That is when we take CUNY and SUNY students, we train them, mostly Latino students. We train them for a few weeks, then they come to the floor of the Senate and they debate a bill. This year they will be debating redistricting.
Yes, that's going to be fun.
That's going to be fun. And so this, it's a way to teach them about governing. And as far as singing, I will have the honor of singing the Puerto Rican national anthem in the night of the gala, which I am really looking forward to doing, because in previous years there have been sometimes recordings that have not been heard too well. So I asked the chair for that privilege, and he gave it to me, so I'm looking forward to it.
Do you want to do a little warm-up here for us?
Well, it is in Spanish,
Okay,
So-
fine. I think the viewers can, you know, they get good singing. It's okay.
3 or 4 words.
Go for
La tierra de Borinquen, donde nacido yo. That's only the first part of the national anthem. So
I
there
think
you
that
go.
might be the first time I've ever had anybody sing on this table. Perhaps my predecessor did, but you are the first, Senator Gustavo Rivera. I want to thank you very much for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Liz.